Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Pod Save Chocolate. My name is Clay Gordon. I'm your host today, and today we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is researching about cocoa and chocolate. And so I was in social media and looking at YouTube videos and all these other kinds of things and looking at top 10 lists. And I was asking myself the question, I was inspired to ask the question, what are 10 top chocolate questions, or what are 10 top questions, 10 top 10 questions that people ask about chocolate? And it occurred to me I didn't know the answer to that question. And so I went out and asked a number of different search engines, 3 different search engines, and a chatbot, ChatGPT, what their thoughts were. So I'm going to go over what I found and think about, and then raise some questions about what they're saying, what they're not saying, what we can learn from them and their sources, and see if we can do a better job researching about chocolate and cocoa, and perhaps take a little more critical eye on what the search engines are giving us. Before I go into that, what I'd like to do is, you can see on the scroll downstairs on below me that this episode of Pod Save Chocolate, like every episode, is sponsored by the members of The Chocolate Life. You can go over to The Chocolate Life and you can become a member. Just click on this nice big green button over here where it says join, or down in the lower right hand corner, if you're not logged in, it will say join, and you can become a member of The Chocolate Life. There's always a free membership, and there are premium memberships as well to support the work that I do here. So you can also go into the comments and let me know where in the world you're connecting from during the live episode. So just, not if you're connecting via YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, but where physically in the world you're connecting from. I'll get that comment and shout out up on screen before the end of the episode. You can also ask me questions about anything that I talk about during the course of the episode. Now, for every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, I put together a post on The Chocolate Life. Here it is. And it provides primarily a run of show. As if you're watching this, there's also the archive links if for some reason you need them. But it provides a run of show, which is the order in which I will be discussing things for the most part. If there are topics that I are not mentioned, I will add links to those resources after the episode is over. So this way you don't have to follow along and get the URLs live. What you can do is you can visit after the fact. So let's just jump in and take a look at the question. So the question is the prompt, right? So that's what they're called in a ChatGPT chatbot conversation. What is the prompt? And the prompt that I used for Google search, DuckDuckGo, and Perplexity search was the same. And that is, what are the top 10 questions people ask about chocolate? Very, very simple. Not the top 10 questions, but 10 top questions. I figured it was the difference was worthwhile in exploring. And interestingly, now I didn't do these backwards. I didn't do what are the top 10 questions. And I wonder if there will be differences. I'll go figure it out. Or you can do this yourself. Rewrite this prompt and just swap the top 10 and see if you get different results. So I went to Google, and here are the Google results. Now, Google now has an AI called Gemini, and Gemini is involved in parsing and presenting the results. Now, Gemini specifically puts together this summary at the top of the page, and then it will elaborate on what it found. Now, importantly, it also goes and says, here are sources that were spidered, so sources that are in the large language model, right? That are in the background, that are in what it is that Google search and Gemini are searching as a result of producing these results. You'll notice that normally, if you just did a search in Google, what it would do is it would give you websites to go visit first. It doesn't do that anymore. It gives you this Gemini summary, and then what it will do is it will give you the sources that it looked through. Now, Interestingly enough, one of the things you want to look at if you ask the same question of multiple search engines is, do these same sites show up over and over and over again? Or so are there differences in terms of what um, the database of websites that the search engines have crawled, are they the same or are they different? And so I will point out some of the overlaps the two between the three different search engines as a part of this. But we have this website called Adler's Den. There's a blog post. I have no idea who Adler's is. It appears to be a shop where they sell a whole bunch of stuff, but I don't know who. Is there an about Adler's Den? So they're not in the United States, right? But we don't actually have a whole lot of information on who Adler is. So, although it appears to be fairly highly authoritative, which means it shows up at the top of the search results, and it's not an ad, it's not sponsored, right? So, this is a site that apparently Google thinks of as fairly highly relevant. There might be a lot of other sites that link to it, would be one reason why that's the case. Um, but notice the date that this is now nearly 5 years old. So even though it might be authoritative in some respects, it is out of date. So we have this company called Adler's Den. We have this website called Formaggio Kitchen. So it does an FAQ. And one of the things that's going on is, let's figure out who these are, about us. Maybe we can find out where they're locating. They're located in Cambridge, and it looks like this is Cambridge, New York, Cambridge, Massachusetts, and in New York City. So in the Essex Street Market. So we know where they are and what they're doing. But how many questions? What is chocolate bloom? Does chocolate have a lot of caffeine? Does chocolate raise or lower cholesterol? Is it good for you? Does it cause tooth decay? What's the difference between praline and gianduja? This is a frequently asked question. It's not one which is on the list of many different websites. So we can go through and we can go and figure out, why is the chocolate pizza company here? It doesn't seem to be. Why is it considered to be an authoritative source? At Google, Santa Barbara Chocolate Company, all right, Askinosie Chocolate, which we know about. I mean, so it is so. Facts About Chocolate appears to be a website. And then there is a YouTube video, Chocolate Answers Most Googled Questions. Now, you'll often find like Vanity Fair or some magazine. I have no idea who Forever Cali is with 152 subscribers. So I don't necessarily know how authoritative Forever Cali should be. So these are some of the websites that Google has in its database. Here appear to be the sites that Gemini is using to put together its list of questions. So according to Google, 10 common questions about chocolate, right, are grouped into categories around health benefits, differences, how it's made, where it comes from, historical significance, how to choose the chocolate, what flavors pair well with it, and if it's good for you, which sounds like health benefits. I don't understand why it's separately. So we have to look very, very closely at what the engines are doing. So what are the health benefits of chocolate? So I don't know it's necessarily the health benefits of chocolate. It is certainly some health benefits of chocolate. So I can click on this, and what it will do is it will actually do a sub search. So if we're interested in learning more, so finding other sources, including other questions about what people are asking about chocolate, we can go and follow those. Unfortunately, when most people say I'm doing research about something, they won't get past the AI generated summary, right? Or they won't do the deeper dive into things. So I've done I've done one or two different searches on one search engine, right? So it's like, what are some of the health benefits of chocolate? Dark chocolate in particular is rich in antioxidants. It can offer benefits like lower LDL cholesterol levels and improved brain function. Pretty cool. What's the difference between milk dark and white chocolate? Milk chocolate contains milk solids. Dark chocolate has a higher cocoa solids content. This is not necessarily true. So this answer is incorrect because the large language model that Gemini uses, it doesn't have enough context. It doesn't have enough information about chocolate to really understand what the differences are. For example, dark chocolate, there is no dark chocolate category. It's called sweet chocolate. And if you look at the definition for sweet chocolate can include dairy ingredients like whey protein, and which is a milk solid. And so we do need to be very, very careful when we look at this to understand that the search engines, right, do not have a lot of domain-specific, chocolate and cocoa domain-specific knowledge in their large language models. So even though it understands the question, so it understands the context, it doesn't have the information in its database to generate a proper response. How is chocolate made? So chocolate is made from cacao beans that are roasted, ground, and refined. Okay, so pre-grinding and refining are technically different things, but they are refined, which is pretty much the same thing. The resulting paste is then mixed with cocoa butter, sugar, and other ingredients to create different chocolate types. Pretty straightforward. Where does chocolate come from? It comes from a cacao tree, the source of chocolate, grown in tropical regions, tropical wide, gone on every coast. Those are large producers. Those are partial answers, not complete answers, but they're not incorrect. The history of chocolate. The chocolate has a long history dating back to ancient civilizations like the Mayan, who used cacao beans as currency and in ritual. If any engine is going to know anything about cocoa in Aztec and Maya times, it is going to be that it was used for currency. But again, importantly, what I can do is I can go click on this and I can get more information. So, but its sources are National Geographic Kids, the Wikipedia article on the history of chocolate. So, by the way, this preview is generated by my browser. So if you do see a preview pop up when I go over a link, it's generated. I use a browser called Arc. It's generated by that. So we have English Heritage Dictionary, which is pretty interesting. So Ethel M. Chocolate's not certain why it's being quoted on the history of chocolate. It's also important to know that the M in Ethel M is Ethel Mars. So World Agroforestry Org, History of Cocoa, right? History.com, the history of chocolate. So there appear to be some reasonable resources that can be you can get to. This one here, I love the fact that this is the National Institutes of Health, and what they're doing is they pull the number of citations for this, Chocolate, Food of the Gods. Interestingly enough, they don't actually mention the book, The True History of Chocolate. So this is a pretty cool response to the question that I'm going through. But this shows the need for being able to go through and do more research, because the first answer you're getting is going to be it may not be complete, and it may in fact be wrong, right? So how should I store chocolate? In a cool, dry place. That's a good one. How do I choose the chocolate that's right for me? Consider your preference. That sounds like a tautological answer. How do I choose what's right for me? Choose what you like. All right. It's not a very, very good answer in my opinion. What flavors pair well with chocolate? Chocolate complements a variety of flavors, right? So the answer to this at this level is not very interesting, and it's so I wouldn't want to use it for anything. Is chocolate good for you? How is that? So what are the health benefits? It's a different way of answering the same question. Dark chocolate in moderation can offer health benefits. Dark chocolate in particular is rich in antioxidants and can offer, so at least the language is similar, so can offer health benefits. And does chocolate contain caffeine? Chocolate does in fact contain caffeine. So this is what Google came up with. So health benefits, difference, how is it made? Where does it come from? History, right? How should I store it? How do I choose the right one? If we go to DuckDuckGo, what we do is we go, is chocolate unhealthy? Which is a restatement of two of the questions from Google. Does chocolate cause acne? Which is a health thing, right? Or so how much caffeine is in chocolate, which is in the Google list. What are the different types of chocolate, which is not in the Google list. Can chocolate improve mood? Not in the Google list. Tooth decay? Not in the Google list. Is white chocolate real chocolate? Again, not in the Google list. How is chocolate made? Right. But notice that that DuckDuckGo is not providing any underlying description for any of these things. It's just saying, here are 10 of the questions. You don't know what's going on. So what it does provide is, oh, we did see Adler's Den. That's in the Google's list. La Belle Cuisine, not on the Google's list. ESL Vault. Is this ESL as in English as a second language? It is. So here's a site about teaching English, as a second language, right? Which is asking questions, but it's an image. So there's no actual text here, no way to interact with it. And then the rest of these appear to be, for some reason, trivia contest sites. 100 trivia quiz questions, chocolate quiz questions, chocolate trivia questions, right? So I think it's an interesting way that DuckDuckGo went and found answers to the question. It may be better to think about the images that are here. So 20 great questions, well, that's not interesting. And now we have a problem is like, why do I have dogs when I'm asking about chocolate? Which is a huge thing. When I'm searching about chocolate, I do need to worry about Labrador retrievers, right? And leather goods made with chocolate covered leather. So I do have this disambiguation that's being done. And notice that I did chocolate and I didn't disambiguate. I didn't say about eating chocolate. I didn't say anything which might disambiguate. And so we have chocolate brands, parlor games. So it seems like DuckDuckGo uh, really focused on trivia sites, which I think is interesting, very, very different. Although here are top 10 questions asked in an interview. I don't know why this is anything to do with chocolate. So this actually, although I do like DuckDuckGo for many reasons, it turns out that its AI assist, right, is not very helpful when it comes to understanding. It doesn't understand what the questions are, and it doesn't give you any help onto how and go find more. It provides just two, okay, recommended list of Whitaker's chocolate and the Wikipedia article. So if I wanted to, is I could say, let's ask it a follow-up question. How does chocolate improve mood? So this, I'm saying, here is a question. Can chocolate improve mood? Right. And I'm asking you a follow-up question based on that. And it says the chocolate, particularly dark chocolate. All right. It's important to know that it uses Mistral here, not ChatGPT. So this is a good thing because now I can compare the results between two different AIs. So their large language model, the documents that are in the model that are queried are going to be different from each other. So that's cool to know. So chocolate contains phenylethylamine, theobromine, tryptophan, which works with serotonin receptors. It stimulates endorphins, can trigger the release of endorphins, contains magnesium, antioxidants, all sorts of things. So that's a cool question, all right? And it provides, it's still from the same sources, although, oh no, yeah, so and what it did is it came back with slightly different sets of questions around these things. But let's ask, so it's really, really important, right, that you not just take the results of a specific search engine and think that that is the answer. You should take a look at multiple search engines and see what they're answering, follow the questions to secondary and tertiary sources. And if there is a way to ask follow-up questions, the the engine will remember the previous prompt and then the results of that prompt, and then use those to narrow the search. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I think this is a pretty interesting answer, but unfortunately, there's no additional context. So I would have to say, what is phenylethylamine or phenylethylamine? So it turns out to be, right, a fairly tedious process. But if you want to understand these things, this is a good mechanism for going and doing it. And I think that even though the results are completely different, right? You might say, oh, Gemini has developed this overview for me, and it's provided me with a top level answer to the question. If I did want to go and follow up on a question, let's do a health benefits one. Um, there's, it's not clear, and this is really important. It's not clear that I can ask it a follow-up question, ask Google a follow-up question in this context. What I do have is I do have prompts, and I can follow the prompts, and I can go read articles, but I can't engage in a conversation and direct the follow-on the way I would like to, right? Or specifically to what it is that interests me. Whereas DuckDuckGo, because of the way it adds a chat interface, right, and then works with Mistral as opposed to ChatGPT, provides, I think, a much more interesting approach to going and doing the research. And it does actually keep a history of what it is that you're looking for. So very, very cool. Now, but the answers are different. This is important. The answers are different, and you need to keep that in fact. So, as a researcher, I want to have multiple sources. Unfortunately, I mean, I don't have sources for these. I don't know where Mistral is grabbing the I don't know where Mistral is grabbing this information from, and I would really like to know that. I noticed something over here which is interesting is I can switch the model. Ooh, and I can go to Claude, and I can answer it exactly the same question with a different model and see what it gets. This is real cool. This is really, really cool. And um, I would, recommend it highly for people who are looking to do research in terms of finding out how different large language models, which have different databases, can give you more context in the same question. The only thing I don't like about this is that I have no idea what the sources are that it's grabbing from, which I wish that I did. The third search engine, one that I often use, is called Perplexity. And so here are the 10 top questions people ask about chocolate. What is chocolate made from? Right? It gives me answers to the questions. And what are the different types of chocolates? Notice that neither Google didn't think that this was an interesting question. DuckDuckGo thought it was an interesting question, but didn't give any answers. It just said, what are the 10 top questions? Right? What are the different types of chocolates? Now, I think it's interesting they include dark chocolate, milk chocolate, white chocolate, and ruby chocolate, right? Which I'm guessing the people at Barry Callebaut would really like, because somehow the notion is ruby chocolate is the fourth type of chocolate, has made it into the large language model data set for at least one AI. That's a pretty cool kind of thing. Again, what Perplexity does is enables me to ask follow-up questions by clicking on this. And what it does is it goes and it creates a record for me. So it now says there's another kind of chocolate called couverture chocolate, um, which wasn't in its really answer. And what I would like to know is, what I can do is I can copy the contents. And I think I have to copy the contents of each section. Yep, I have to copy the contents of each section or export the section. I can ask it to rewrite the answer, which is really, really helpful. Um, it doesn't tell me. So there, you'll see that there's a list here, not for this original question, not entirely sure why there is, but it says there is a list here of 8 different sources. I can go take a look at the sources. So Lake Champlain chocolate, number 1, not entirely sure why that's pulled out. The Wikipedia article on types of chocolate, Valrhona, Edible Blog, Hill Country Chocolate. What is chocolate classified as? Again, ethyl M, so the people at Mars would be very happy. Not entirely sure why Wild West chocolate. And Candy USA is from the National Confectioners Association. The Pioneer Woman, 15 different types. So, you know, often one of the things that search engines don't provide you is an opportunity for serendipity, right? And serendipity is, I think, is really important because often you don't always know what you're looking for, right? And you can find different avenues of explorations. It would never occur to me to think about the Pioneer Woman as a website where I would go to think about the different types of chocolate and specifically different types of chocolate in the baking aisle. So, excuse me, let's get rid of all these pop-ups. So what are the 15 different top? Milk, dark, the semi-sweet, right? So dark chocolate is not a type of chocolate. It's a subset of semi-sweet, subset of sweet chocolate, right? White chocolate, not entirely sure why bittersweet is not up there. Blonde chocolate, so our friends at Valrhona would be happy about that. Gianduja is not a type of chocolate. It's a nut spread with chocolate in it. Is Dutch processed cocoa powder a type of chocolate? Couverture chocolate. Again, it's interesting why they're making the distinctions that they're making, and why natural cocoa powder isn't by um, Dutch processed cocoa powder. But it does give people. So when I'm trying to find out why people are thinking a particular kind of way, following a link like this Pioneer Women website, right? The 17 types of chocolate. I mean, 8 main types of chocolate. This is really interesting. When I look at, for example, the Code of Federal Regulations, there is a specific list of chocolate types, and in there they are sweet chocolate, milk chocolate, and white chocolate, as well as liquor are the primary types of chocolate. So it's really, really interesting that we've got these other things. So this classification is a really, really interesting to me in terms of understanding what's going on. What are the 7? I mean, I didn't look at these things. The 17 types of chocolate. What are they? So what is chocolate? 17. So dark, unsweetened, semi-sweet, bittersweet, cocoa powder, Dutch processed cocoa powder, black cocoa powder, which is actually a form of Dutch, processed cocoa powder, German chocolate, which is an interesting history and etymology. So milk couverture modeling. Oh, that's an interesting one. Compound. It's not chocolate. It's Gianduja. So just the classifications here are really, really interesting to think about. So if you're looking for serendipity or looking for why people think the way they think, it may be that they've run across a classification system that is very, very different from the other ones. So this is what I want to talk about when it comes to all of this. I also want to let you know that where you ask this question can be really, really important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an experiment, and this, which is showing up in this window here, let me um, hide this one so you don't get confused. This is Perplexity, right, on my phone. So here's my phone, right? And what I've done is using QuickTime, I'm able to record the screen of my phone and show it live by sharing the window, right? And so I've asked Perplexity, but in the Arc browser, which is optimized for search on my phone, I've asked it what the 10 top questions are. And it gave me entirely different set of answers than it did when I asked the same question in Perplexity in my desktop browser, which is really quite interesting. So this is using the Perplexity engine as the back end. Now, if you can see this, I can show you somewhere else, is that I updated this list this morning. And right now, what it's showing is that the post on The Chocolate Life, which is here, right? And the YouTube video are two of the top 10 responses to the question, what are 10 top questions? So within 24 hours, um, the Chocolate Life has shown up in the top of search results. So this is very interesting. So it says is that you might get different answers to the same question from the same search engine, depending upon where you ask the question, on a desktop browser, on your phone browser, on a tablet browser. And this is what was the most interesting to me about that. Let me go back here. Let me come back here. Let me bring back the Perplexity window. So that I found was very, very interesting. I also noticed that when I went to DuckDuckGo and requeried it, so I have the link to DuckDuckGo on my page, as opposed to the query that I saved yesterday. And if I go to the DuckDuckGo page on the post and ask it the question, what it also says is now, right, the youtube.com and the chocolatelife.com entries are number 1 and number 2, right, before anything else. But we still have Adler's Den, which was in the previous list, La Belle Cuisine, ESL Vault. They've just pushed things down. So it's fascinating to me that when you ask the question, you'll get different results. Where you ask the question, you'll get different results, right? How you ask the question. Let's go and do that right now. What are the top, what are the top 10 questions people ask about chocolate, right? And notice that the YouTube post is number 1. The website, the post on the Chocolate Life is now at number 5. We have 3 intervening ones which are in the same order, right? But it's still, for some reason, emphasizing trivia questions. Right? But I asked essentially, what are the different types of chocolate? Is it healthy? Where does it come from? Notice that the summary here is different because I changed this from 10 top to top 10, right? And the sources, it's no longer Whitaker's Chocolate and the Wikipedia. So we've learned something very, very important, that incredibly tiny changes in the prompt, right, can also have a huge effect on the answer. And why would we think this is the case, right? Just off the top of my head, I don't know that I would, right? So this is one of the things that you want to take in mind as you're using internet search tools to find answers to questions. And I'm going to think about summarizing what I learned as a result of doing this. I did some of this yesterday before, in preparation for this episode, but I wanted to leave the real exploration to be a part of the episode so that it would be just as I would be learning along with you, not necessarily reciting things that I had already learned. And so what I think I will do is I will go and look at the transcript of this and then pull apart some of the findings that I came from this and put them into a list, some of the things that you're going to want to do, right? So, right now, what I'm thinking is that, what I might want to do is use the search engine ask the question a couple of ways in DuckDuckGo, and then use the search engine follow-up, and then be able to use the different large language models in order to be able to find different answers. The only thing that I really don't like about that is that the sources are not in line. It's not telling me what the sources are, and I wish that they did. I have 2 sources, which is not very many, right? I do like the assesses and may contain inaccuracies. I think that's really, really important. You need to do your own fact checking. You just can't assume that whatever you learn is in fact the correct answer. Even at highly authoritative sites, why is chocolate pizza an authoritative site? I have no idea. Um, right. And so, from a sources perspective, I don't know that I think DuckDuckGo, right, is is hugely interesting. Um, but it will provide me with more answers, and I can do the follow up using the search engine, the AI search engine. While Google provides me more sources and it provides me more links, it doesn't appear to offer me an a way to query Gemini directly, which is one of the things I'd like to be able to do. I'd like to be able to say, "Oh, here's a question, Gemini, tell me more about this question." So it doesn't appear to do that. Um, and I'm not happy with the fact that it doesn't do that. And it's not there. All responses may include mistakes. It's a good thing. But even though this AI overview is there, uh, I would like to be able to follow it up, and I can't. So that's one thing to consider about using Google compared with DuckDuckGo. One of the things about Perplexity is you'll notice that in its in its what I want to call normal mode as opposed to verbose mode. There's also um, a pro account you can sign up for. Is that you'll notice when I did the different types of chocolate here, right, as a follow up question to this, right? So I clicked on what are the different types of chocolates, and it gave me this list. Um, what it did is it listed the sources that it got the answer from. So this is important to consider. You can look at these and you can follow the ones that you want. Uh, One of the things that I wish more search engines would do, and I think it should have the information to do this, is that this is a manufacturer website. This is a manufacturer website. This is a blog site. Um, Hill Country Chocolate, this appears to be Hill Country Chocolate is a chocolatier which runs a blog, right? So I wish it were able to classify the sources of information. So I say, I'm not really interested in, listening to a blog. What I want to know is, if this is, oh no, a private blog as opposed to you know, uh, you know, this National Institutes of Health or something like that. So this would really help me saying these are more likely to be authoritative sources. And this is something that AI should be able to do um, that they don't do. Now, if I go back to the answer, one of the things that Perplexity does that I do like is that it says, here's an answer, dark chocolate. And what it does is it says it found this answer in the following sources. It found it at Valrhona website, at the Edible blog, at Hill Country Chocolate, and at FLM. So that's one reason I continue to use, right? Because it tells me where it found the information for any particular answer, right? So for Ruby chocolate, it found it at the Edible blog, it found it at Hill Country Chocolate, it found FLM. Notice, however, that it didn't associate Ruby chocolate with Perry Calabout, which is an interesting one as a source. Again, as somebody who's a knowledge domain, quote unquote, expert, this is interesting to me. Primary types of dark milk, white, and ruby. Again, and couverture. This is a classification system, right? Couverture refers to it's not a type of chocolate because I can have dark couverture, milk chocolate couverture, white chocolate couverture, as opposed to chocolates which are made with formulations that don't lend themselves to covering. So the fluidity, the viscosity is higher, the fluidity is lower. And so this is a classification thing that, again, this is the large language model that these engines are using doesn't understand enough about chocolate to understand that this is a misclassification issue, right? This is couverture is not a type of chocolate in the same way that dark milk and white are types of chocolate. So, but you can see why I'm using a combination of Google, of DuckDuckGo, and Perplexity, right? So it's by looking at different search engines which have different algorithms and different collections of data to go and return results, what I can do is I can develop a more sophisticated understanding of what um, the landscape of the question looks like, and each of them provides a different way to find more information, which I think is also really important. You can, I believe you can sign up for a DuckDuckGo account. It's pretty much free. They don't track you. You can use Google for free, although they want to track you and give you ads. I do have an account, and so it's got a history that it's keeping track of for me. Perplexity, I have an account. It's not a pro account. It keeps one of the things. It keeps a history of um, it keeps a history of what I've been asking it in case I want to go back to it again. So there are some advantages of some search engines just from a memory aspect as opposed to others. So those are the three search engines I use. There are lots of other search engines, and there are lots of other browsers. Now, for example, a I'm using a browser which is called Arc, ARC, and it's got some, you know, it's got some very specific user interface attributes that I have come to depend on over the course of the last well over a year that I've been using it. One of the things that they do is if I want to, so I can ask a question about explain um, bitterness in chocolate. You'll notice that it does not see the phrase. I'm in the right hand corner. I'm in the upper right hand corner. I said, I'm asking a question. And what it's going to do, it's going to go and summarize the web page. So if I want to, so I can actually use the browser to provide an AI summary of what's on the page. They also, I can by getting to a command line, I can get lots of access to other kinds of things, which are different from just being able to search. So I'm using Arc. And again, if you see like some particular some particular user interface aspects, like I hover over something and it might generate a preview, these are associated with Arc. Um, not with the website, not with the search engine. So just a quick note about that. Listen, it's a fork of Chrome. So anything that works in Chrome will work. So in terms of extensions, will work inside of Arc, and you can import all of your Chrome features, all of your Chrome bookmarks into it. One of the reasons why I like it, I try to hide it to the extent that I possibly can, is that the navigation is over on the left. I can create sets of related. So here is a set, they call it a space, where here's everything that I want to keep track of in terms of pinned pages for PodSafe Chocolate. I've got one for the Chocolate Life, and I've got one for social media. So it provides me more than just tabs and windows, and every single window that I open has got this navigation on the left where this is common. And so what I can do is I can keep track of a lot more stuff. It's just, for me, it's been really valuable. And so I'm telling you this just because it's the tool that I use. You can go to search up Arc browser and you can download it. If you're a student, they have a very particular version of the Arc browser called Dia, and Dia is specifically designed for students for research. When they open it up to the general public beta, I plan to go and use it because I think it will be a better tool for doing research than a straight browser is going to be. So just a quick note. So the final um, uh, the final research interface that I used was ChatGPT. So here's a quick shout out from Mike at Encore Coffee. Happy Friday. Yeah, Mike, I hope things are going well. I noticed I've been looking at like major tornado watches for the Kansas City area. So hope you are well and safe. I know that the National Weather Service is not unfortunately giving as many notices and notifications that they have in the past with respect to that. So, all right. So I've asked three search engines what they're doing. Um, all three search engines have AI as a component of what it is that they're doing. Right. So that's also important to know. But I did decide to ask an AI chatbot. And what does ChatGPT think? What are the 10 top questions people ask about chocolate? So we talk about, is chocolate healthy or unhealthy? So that's interesting because we in two of the three search engines, we got, is chocolate healthy for you? Or is chocolate good for you? And one of them said, is chocolate unhealthy for you? Right. So this is an interesting one. ChatGPT says healthy, unhealthy. That's fine. What is the difference between milk dark and white chocolate? Ah, it didn't say what are the types of chocolate. It said what are the differences between types of chocolate. Where does it come from? So many are curious how it's made. So this is describing what the question is about. So this is understanding what it is that ChatGPT thinks about the question, which is also helpful. So I've asked the AI chatbot, so what are 10 top questions? And what it said, this is what interests people about chocolate. So what is the best type of chocolate for baking? Not a question from the search engines. Why does chocolate sometimes turn white or look dusty? Not a question. Is chocolate safe for pets? Not a question in the search engines. Why is some chocolate more expensive than others? How much caffeine is in chocolate? Does chocolate, so both of these are in other search engines. Can you be allergic to chocolate? So this is a different set of answers, and the focus of the responses is very different. And the whole purpose of Chat GPT is in the word chat. So what we then want to do is we want to ask a follow-up questions. Would you like these tailored toward a specific audience, like kids, chocolate connoisseurs, or health-conscious customers? So this is actually an interesting aspect of what ChatGPT knows about chocolate, which is that there are different audiences for chocolate, right? And that each audience might have a different interest in chocolate. And it's saying, oh, you can re-ask the question, right? You might want to ask about specific, right? uh, Specific questions related to the explanation of the question, why ChatGPT thought it was important, right? So, what are top health concerns with chocolate? So, here are top health concerns because I did follow up just generically. It says, is chocolate healthy and unhealthy? And I said, oh, what are the top health concerns? It has a lot of sugar. It's got a lot of calories by weight. It has saturated fat in it. However, again, here's where the lack of domain knowledge is that the structure of the saturated fat in cocoa butter is such that it functions more like olive oil. So it's actually considered to be a healthy fat, even though the triglyceride structure is different. So it misunderstood this. And notice there's no no. Uh, it does say down here, Chat GPT can make mistakes. Check important info. So it says basically you need to do your own due diligence to make sure that I'm telling you good answers. So what are health concerns? High sugar content, calorie density, saturated fat, caffeine and stimulants. Is it addictive? Heavy metals. Interesting. Acid reflux or a burn. So 10 top questions in the other search engines, none of them were asking about heavy metals. And I can tell you that um, when it comes to um, social media, especially, that sometimes it seems like rarely a day goes by, certainly not a week goes by when somebody doesn't ask about heavy metals. Um, so acid reflux or heartburn, which is concerns to some people, allergies and sensitivities, migraine trigger. So these are really really good things. And one of the follow up questions is: are the health concerns listed? This is not prompted, um, right? So what question I came up with: are the health concerns listed ranked in order from most concerning to least concerning? And it says not ranked by severity, but rather grouped by commonness and relevance, right? Right. However, if we were to rank the list, this is how we would rank the list. So that's really good. So sugar content, caloric density, saturated fats, heavy metals, and It's the same. Well, is that true? It not quite. It moved dental health up the list of things. So cocoa is non-karyogenic, which means that cocoa itself does not contribute to the formation of cavities. It's the sugar and other ingredients in the chocolate that refer that are karyogenic that lead to cavity formation. So Chat GPT again, I would not rely on any single research source, right, for any answer, right? So I'm going to use a bunch of things. I'm going to use Chat GPT. One of the reasons why I like DuckDuckGo and is that what I can do is it provides the ability to go change the model, right? So I can go here and I've got an answer and I can go from Chat GPT to Llama to Claude to um, Alpha 3 to Mistral. And I can ask the same question using different models. So from a convenience perspective, um, I like the way DuckDuckGo is going. Obviously, Gemini is proprietary, so can't get at Gemini from anything other than a browser. Now, another thing to consider, because this is a point that Mike at Encore makes, is he likes to use Gemini for deep research, is that Gemini as a research tool, I believe is really limited to people who do have a Google account. So if you're using Gmail and you're using Google Workspaces, which provides you with Google Drive and a bunch of other things as a part of that, you do have access to Gemini. And I believe I can go, is it here? I don't use it. Oh, here we go. So I can go to Gemini, and now I have questions. So 10 top. Let's go grab this. Let's go grab the question. 10 top questions people ask about chocolate. We're in Gemini. One of the reasons why I didn't want to do this is because it's reversed, right? So 10 top, what is chocolate? Who invented chocolate? Notice that this is an entirely different set of answers from what showed up in the search request, which is hardly surprising because now we're interacting with the chat. And notice also up here that what we do is that we have two different versions of Gemini, Flash, right, and uh, Pro, which is in preview, good for reasoning, math, and code. So again, Mike, I don't disagree with you that Google Gemini is not bad for research. I think that it might be better than ChatGPT. Certainly, one reason to prefer Gemini over ChatGPT is that if you already have a Google account, that Gemini is accessible at no extra charge. So that's something to consider there. Um, um, I think, however, that because in the DuckDuckGo search engine, what I do is I have access to a number of different models. What I would like to do is I would like to put Gemini on one screen and DuckDuckGo on another screen and compare the Gemini results to the same prompts with the prompts from other large language models, and then hone in on a common set of responses that I can use. So that would be the way that I would do this. I would not rely on just one chatbot to find the answer to the questions. And again, none of these chatbots actually have a lot of cocoa and chocolate domain specific understanding. And so when it comes to really understanding a lot of the nuances, um, they're going to fall flat. So just a quick understanding about that. So, oh, just real quick. So this is Jin Kim, who's in Southern California, says he just placed an order for Encore from Encore for a friend of mine in Liberty, Missouri, and she really enjoyed the coffee flavored chocolate. So hey, Jin. So thanks sharing that. Knowing that Mike is listening, that's a great way of connecting. And I don't know, Jin, if you found out about Encore because of the Craft Chocolate Challenge and the other things that I've been doing here on the Chocolate Life that Mike and team have been mentioned in. If this is one of the things that we do here, Mike gives a quick shout out, thanks, which is great. So that's one of the bits of community building that I hope that we can engender here on the Chocolate Life. So going back to the post for this page, so what I wanted to do, right, in this episode is say, how do we? So when people say, this is the question these days, when people say they have quote unquote done research, right, they often, usually, I don't know the answer to the question, mean that they performed a search using a single search engine, right? But is that research? Or wanted to go and take a look at how different search engines deliver different results, right? Where those results come from and how you might rank them, also very, very important, right? And then what are the differences between search engines, which have AI assists, and chatbots? So really, 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 really important difference. So that when you go and you use these online tools, what you do is you have a better understanding, I hope, of how to use them, what they might be good for, what one approach might be better than another. That understanding that because they don't have the same training sets and their coding is slightly different, what they're emphasizing, they will deliver different results. And it's really important to go and understand what those are. Now, I think that what I'm going to do is I don't have the Gemini results put up. So I think I'm going to go and reload Gemini and take a screen capture and put it on the page. So you can see some of the differences. So and I think I'm going to do screen captures from some of the search engines as well, just to give you an idea about the differences between them. Unfortunately, um, it's a real, I can't transfer the search query from Arc on my phone to Arc on my desktop. It doesn't allow me to do that. I can't pin it. I'm not entirely sure why it doesn't allow me to do that, but I wish that it did. But in any event, that's been the PodSafe Chocolate for today. Top 10 questions about chocolate, evaluating different search engines and how search engines and an AI chatbot respond to the question of what are 10 top questions people ask about chocolate. So this episode of PodSafe Chocolate, like all episodes of Chocolate, The Chocolate Life, is sponsored by the members. If you're not a member, you can go click on the join button. I'm logged in, so it says account. You can click on the join button here, and you can become a member of the Chocolate Life. Free membership, always premium membership if you have the resources to support the work that I do. And with that, I'm done for today. I'm done for Friday, the 23rd of May. I do want to remind everybody that this coming Tuesday, the 27th, I've got an interview with Tuta and Juliana Aquino of Baiani Chocolate and Vale Potomuju, which is a cacao farm in southern Bahia in Brazil. And not only am I interviewing them, but I also have 5 bars that we're going to be tasting. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. These are my favorite episodes. They're interview tasting episodes. And, Tuta and Juliana are lovely people. I've had the great fortune of being able to stay in their home in Sao Paulo most of the times that I've been a visitor to Sao Paulo. Lovely people, great chocolate, and a really, really important part of the Brazilian bean the bar chocolate scene, some of which I've featured here on The Chocolate Life. And with that, I want to remind everybody that if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, you may want to reevaluate your life choices because you could be doing it wrong. And until the next time, everybody, ciao.